Hello, everybody. Hello to the panelists and to our audience today in this conference as well. But again, in the last year, also in the last 24 hours, we talked about the need, whether it exists, about expanding, the ranks, the enlistment ranks, especially from the ultra-Orthodox community. But we don't really talk enough about what happens after these people are recruited, the ultra-Orthodox are recruited once they draft. Is the army ready? Is it, again, prepared to be able to take in people from the ultra-Orthodox sector? Is it prepared for different types of sectors? Has it made the necessary changes? So we have, again, people, specialists and experts in this field. Dr. Idit, Shafran, Gittleman, who's a senior researcher in the INSS. Welcome to you, Dr. Idit. Hello. And we have with us as well Rabbi Yonatan Reiss, who is the founder of the Haredi Hesder Yeshiva network, Hadvata. And we have Lieutenant Colonel in Reserves Yossi Levy, who is the CEO of Netzah Yehuda, who is the most senior Haredi ultra-Orthodox in terms of ranks, military ranks in service at the moment. I think you're very familiar with the topic. And you deal with it from morning till night. So let's begin with you, Yossi. Does an army have to sort of adapt itself for people who are recruited? Let's say people will come here from all sorts of organizations. And, I hear this again claim a lot. When we came to the army, we didn't come to a society, the society that we were familiar with. It wasn't mom's food. The music I heard in the army wasn't the one I was used to at home. I wasn't asking for any adjustments and adaptations. Why did the ultra-Orthodox man need adjustments and adaptations? Thank you. Again, this is a very difficult, week for fighters from Netzah Yehuda, which is the ultra-Orthodox brigade, fell as well. And again, first of all, thank you to all the soldiers who fight for all of us. But another thing that I want to say, the ultra-Orthodox have served in the military since the inception of the states. David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister, brought about, again, this formality. Then they sort of stopped because of, again, they stopped serving because of gaps and discrepancies in what they needed to be ultra-Orthodox men. And why am I telling you all of this? Because I was born in a classical ultra-Orthodox home. I didn't even plan on serving. I didn't even think I'll get to the IDF. It wasn't part of my values. It wasn't appealing. And when I came to serve, if there weren't that brigade Netzah Yehuda, I would not be able to serve, because in Netzah Yehuda I was able to observe the commandments of the Torah and lead an observant way of life. That is why we need tracks for ultra-Orthodox. This is the best. And they have, by the way, they've existed for a long time. And people who come and say that they don't serve in the IDF because there's no adapted track for him as an ultra-Orthodox, either he doesn't know about the tracks or he's lying. No. Is it adapted for a yeshiva student from Ponevezh, which is the very best yeshiva, who doesn't know what the military service is? Probably not, but it's definitely adapted and suitable for any ultra-Orthodox person who is observant and wants to uphold this way of life. Let me just say that lately I went to, again, on the tour in the Hashmonaim brigade, and I met those serving and those families. And by the way, there is a special adjustment in that specific brigade in terms of the kosher food, again, the very best kosher certificates that are brought in. And they only play Hasidic music in the cafeterias. There are Torah lessons. There are no women in the base and the entire vicinity as well. And Rabbi Yonatan Reiss, for many years you have accompanied young Haredi soldiers who've come to serve and also post-army. So yes, the army does know how to adapt itself. Again, the army can provide anything an ultra-Orthodox soldier needs. And again, we have about 100, again, coming in, only 100 who have enlisted lately from the ultra-Orthodox community. What are we not doing right? I think that the discussion today is not a tactical one. It's a strategic one, because up until the 7th of October, and I've been in this, again, era for a decade already. Let me just point out something. I was once asked, what is the difference between a pilot what's the difference between a pilot and a doctor? Meaning, before a pilot goes into the jet, nobody checks, how many hours he has in experience. And a doctor, they always check to see how many years of experience a doctor has, because a pilot, if he errs, he dies with you. But a doctor, if a doctor errs, the patient dies, the doctor doesn't. So again, I am giving guarantees again for 15 million, again for yeshiva, meaning if I err, it means I have to pay out the guarantee and I mortgage my homes to give guarantees for this ultra-Orthodox recruitment. Let me give you a different example. We keep dealing in tactics, right? There'll be sanctions, whatever it is. Nice discussions. I don't think they will be fruitful in any way. But again, there have been sanctions past 2 years. And again, the ultra-Orthodox have not enlisted. What will change in the future? So I think that at the end of the day, I call it the mirror of Israeli society, because the military cannot sort of adapt itself or be prepared for the ultra-Orthodox community. The minute that I convince that secular commander why my skull cap is more important than wearing my military trousers in just the right way, he won't understand, meaning we don't even expect the army to be able to understand the ultra-Orthodox sect. Okay, yes, so they brought in the special kosher certification, but it's not going to work in the long term, because until we don't, again, bring to a close what the real status quo in society is, what is the real relationship between Israeli society and ultra-Orthodox society, because technically speaking, we can solve it if it's only, again, if it's not about values. So yes, today there is a need. There's a very simple solution. Let's again divide the Gaza Strip, the Gaza front, the Lebanon front. Okay, and Gaza will put off for a winter. And again, and all his people in the Lebanon, again, there'll be a liberal sort of army. Okay, here's the end of the solution. Those who are observant will fight in Gaza. Those who are not observant will fight in Lebanon. No, but that's not the right solution, right? We cannot talk about it in such terms. We have to prepare the army, because the army is a reflection of Israeli society. So if we don't really discuss it internally within Israeli society, the problem of the army will not solve itself either. There are sort of local solutions, but you have to delve in much deeper. I mean, that is the foundation of the story. Does the military know how to bring gefilte fish for Passover? Of course it does. And, different sort of local solutions in different places, but as I want to fight for my values, I understand, I respect those who fight for their values, but that is where that is the focal point. When we are able to, again, solve the problems within society, those in the military will be solved. Okay, there are many sort of opinions about how the army can prepare itself for the Orthodox sector, but I want to ask you, is the army really willing to make those adaptations for the ultra-Orthodox? And we understand the fears of the ultra-Orthodox, that the military is a melting pot. It was called so in the past, a melting pot. But again, it's called a melting pot. Maybe the military has to sort of relinquish that desire to be a melting pot and to bring together all the different parts of society. Maybe, and not to talk about it that much. Can the army sort of relinquish that? Must it relinquish this ethos? Must the military adapt itself to different people coming from different sectors with different customs and mannerisms and values? Must it exert efforts on that beyond, providing defense and security? Let me connect to what my friend said here. Again, we've sat on different panels together. This is a strategic discussion, and let me sort of, again, suggest these two different sort of guiding principles. Okay, IDF, again, has to, because it's compulsory service, it has to enable all the different soldiers to respect the values, or their formative values, the education. And by the way, some values are not religion-based, by the way. After having said that, in the previous panel, they said that the whole discussion around ultra-Orthodox service has to be done done in context. What was true before the 7th of October is not necessarily correct post-October 7th. That is about enlistment. But on the strategic level, let me say, this also relates to the actual service. I did not believe when they told me that the IDF and the security system promises the ultra-Orthodox soldier, you will go out of the army as you come in. I actually, I wanted to see that slogan with my own eyes. No such thing. There was never such a thing. No soldier comes out of the army as he or she entered army service. Now, yesterday, not only were 3 soldiers actually killed, but a 3rd soldier took his own life in the past week. No, he did not come out of the army as he entered it, okay? Mothers, of secular soldiers or otherwise are not only fear their actual flesh and blood, but also their values and their mental state. So that slogan is really nonsense. Again, we paid the price for it. First of all, they will never be successful to be able to fulfill that promise, right? If they take that slogan of you will emerge as you came in. The second thing is that Yossi spoke about Ben Gurion. The perception of Ben Gurion was not this. The fact that there's kosher food in all the bases is because we didn't want an army within an army. We're not even talking about a melting pot anymore, even not related to the ultra-Orthodox question. It's called something else. But we look at the different sort of, different orders. That word is not written. You're not even, a commander is not even allowed to talk about melting pot, and any commander that commands over ultra-Orthodox soldiers, they emphasize this even more so than the gender the question. It's not a melting pot between Israeli society and the ultra-Orthodox sector. Of course, there has to be all sorts of directives and formalizations, and we have to find different types of arrangements. But people who talk about this, the acute security need, they have to come again with an open heart. But we also have to talk about boundaries. There's no reason why the IDF should be a radical sort of symbol. I think the ultra-Orthodox, again, from my experience, do walk around the world. They fly around the world. They walk around Israel. And when you said it, like with this in a nonchalant way, yes, we know the Hashmonaim Brigade. There are no women there. Not only are there no women there, there's no chance of seeing a woman anywhere. I think we have to talk about this. It's not something that you can say that and say that something it doesn't make sense. There's no street in the world or in Israel where you don't see a woman. There are no supermarkets in the world that commits to the ultra-Orthodox section, they'll see no woman. So again, that thought that the IDF will take this to an extreme, I think that's a problem. Yes, there will be all sorts of arrangements, but you have to talk about borders as well. You don't have to, again, assume that the sector, because of its political power, because they were able to force our leadership and then to get this promise that any ultra-Orthodox soldier will leave the service as he entered it. No such thing, because it doesn't exist for any soldier. So you're either part of the game or not. Okay, so Yossi, we are talking about again the compatibility of the IDF to the ultra-Orthodox. Now, maybe you've heard from discussions with soldiers and this. How can the ultra-Orthodox they adapt themselves to the army as well? I mean, it can't just be one directional, right? Is it bi-directional as well? Have you seen it in any way? Maybe in this round, I might not get a round of applause, but I'm going to try. Yossi, you get enough applause everywhere. Say what you want to say. The first thing is, yes, the Hashmonaim Brigade, Netzah Yehuda, it's a great brigade. Really, even Netzah Yehuda has been around for 25 years. So no women serving in the brigade. It's legitimate. I'm in Netzah Yehuda. Again, I risk my life many a time without having women next to me, and it's possible, and it's legitimate. The second thing is, the question is, how do we look at this event? If we look at the event, as was said here before, it's a tactical event, then little local solutions, give us more time for prayer, kosher food, more kosher food. It's not enough. But the question is whether the army is compatible or is adapted, again, to be of the higher kosher level to the soldiers. let's look at it differently. If we see again what is just, of course, everybody has to conscript, everyone has to enlist. This is from 1986. Okay, everybody has to enlist. But if we are wiser, not only correct, there are more than 20,000 ultra-Orthodox people who don't really study Torah all day and they don't go to the IDF. Now, those who go to the academy and he's Haredi, does he have any justification to study for a degree while his counterpart from the secular world is mobilized? Is he risking his spirituality in the IDF more so than in the academe? So there's no justification in the world for any ultra-Orthodox youth to be in the academe, to work, to study anything, whether he's a pizza guy or a taxi driver, and not serving the IDF. So I don't understand it. Now, when I grow up with a certain set of values, which is always yeshiva, always yeshiva, always yeshiva, nothing else, then I'm not going to go to the IDF. It's not in part of my value basket. So what is the solution to that? Education. If we are not able to assimilate, to instill education, we will not change anything. We have to continue what Rabbi Yonatan is doing, and ourselves, with those pre-military Yeshivot and tracks, and to start at the age of 16 and even before, even at the age of 7 in first grade, and to start talking of contributing. And whoever serves in the army is somebody who is sacred, is somebody spiritual, somebody holy. What is holier than that? You're risking your life for the people of Israel. On the other hand, there's no need to mobilize even one Torah learner, one yeshiva student. There's no military need. Again, the Torah learners are preserving an age-old tradition. I mean, thousands of years of Judaism were preserved by the ultra-Orthodox and the religious sector. Those who study Torah do something good for the state of Israel. We have to preserve them. Okay, it doesn't counter. It's not a contradiction to the fact that we are able to bring in 3 Haredi brigades to the army. Sorry, we cannot see who's talking to us. Again, the light is in our eyes. No, I told you not to applaud too early. I told you, make sure I end, and then you can decide if to applaud or not. We will allow you to voice your opinions. Rabbi Reiss, I do want to ask you, when you talk with, again, youngsters who come to your Hesder Yeshivot with their parents and with their rabbis, are they willing to accept this gap, which is not, just only in terms of the kosher certificate or how many less Torah lessons will be in the army, but in terms of the educational gap? Somebody who grew up in the education system didn't grow up with that ethos or with the value that he'll serve at the age of 18. Is this gap very present? Are we able to bridge these gaps? And, whether by establishing a yeshiva, a one-year track yeshiva. In previous panels, this was mentioned as well. They talked about education. They talked about practices. I'm going to say, I don't want you to be disappointed. Let me say in an unequivocal way. The ultra-Orthodox leadership, there is something that has happened here after many a year, which we have to understand. Until the 7th of October, and in the past decade, I sat in many discussions in the human resource divisions. They didn't even want the ultra-Orthodox. They thought the ultra-Orthodox sector is just something, is a nuisance. They didn't want ultra-Orthodox soldiers, and I can prove everything I'm saying. I do have proof for everything I'm saying. Okay? They didn't need soldiers, so they said. And because of, again, equality, they brought in people. I remember, actually, I sat in some committee, and they had to break their heads where to bring in, where to sort of assimilate ultra-Orthodox soldiers. On the 7th of October, something happened. Something happened. Suddenly, the IDF needed soldiers. And also in the ultra-Orthodox sector, they understood this, that the IDF needed fighters. On the other hand, something happened in the ultra-Orthodox leadership as well. The ultra-Orthodox leadership, for the first time, suddenly couldn't really agree to anything, because the minute they would agree to one true thing, It means that they are bringing down that ethos. The ultra-Orthodox ethos is something totalitarian. I mean, if you want to be a Torah student, you have to learn. If you go to the IDF, then you go work. There's no such option. You have to study Torah. That's the only option, right? You can't talk to me. Don't talk. There are other options, yes, but don't talk to me. I'm not related to it at all. I'm just related to Torah learning. So all the discussions with Torah leadership, the minute that they agree that one soldier goes, not even talking about 2,000, 10,000, one soldier, all those, again, political brokers, those Haredi political brokers. We can talk about solutions. Let me just explain. I just want to, in order to bring solutions, again, I told you, I don't want you to just go home disappointed by what I said. There's no options. Meaning the minute that the ultra-Orthodox leadership agrees that one yeshiva student recruits, even to the firefighters, they are basically toppling, breaking down the entire ethos, right? We got to agreements about 10,000, 11,000, 15,000. It's all fiction, by the way. I told you. The minute Julie Edelson will tell them, no problem, 1,000 is enough, okay? I will give you budgets or pro-military tracks. It's part of those 4,000 they agree to, but they will not agree to it because they cannot break down that ethos of ultra-Orthodox education. And therefore, let me just talk to you about the practical level. Let's talk on the practical level. Sanctions could be negative or positive. It can't be a work plan because in the last decades, the State of Israel gave one work plan, sanctions. Now, I know the army better than you because, again, I dealt with all of these people. I know how to bring 4,000 young ultra-Orthodox to the army. And, again, within an hour, the head of human resources from the army will call up Gaffney and say, take them away. Take them away, okay? Even as a cook, okay? It's just a waste of time. The IDF just can't deal with it. Even counting in Yiddish is a problem for the army. So the army can't, again, work with people who, again, are subject to sanctions or not. Okay, I know, what I said in all these discussions, I've said, give budgets to the Hesder Yeshivot, not to different nonsense and the PR that you're doing, but they didn't do it. What can we do? Every, entrepreneur does what he can.
There's not much to do. Tactically, I think that the day the Israeli society, first and foremost, demands the Israeli government, or before even talking, because the discussion of the status of the yeshiva learners, it has nothing to do with conscription law. It will not come, the conscription, and I started gently by saying, as a Haredi man, I think we should give a status. I also think that it is the right thing to discuss today, 2025, what is the status quo? What will this Israeli society be willing and what not willing to take? I think it's legitimate to give everyone the status because we need to sanctify this. But conscription of Haredi men has nothing to do with this discussion. A simple resolution by the government saying and bringing plans and goals, numbers, because it's in order to save the Torah world. We want 4,000 soldiers now to draft. What are the criteria? Over the age of 24, at least 2 children at home. So this is how you'll get the money. What will the army do? They will need to have more synagogues and more dorms, more barracks. I mean, there's nothing to do with all these men. We need to take plans that work. We have Yeshiva Hesder and other plans, but the State of Israel is not taking part of this. Yossi and myself, we fundraise privately when Israel decides, the state decides. It's a strategic event. They will bring a lot of entrepreneurs and find solutions. What else about money? The Haredi MKs, same as careers for Haredi. They run the whole thing, and they need to take part of this. This is the solution. I wanted to ask something, but I think that Dr. Shafran Gittleman wants to react to this, so I think my question will be redundant here. Maybe both. Okay, I want to continuing to. It's not the first time we've been talking about that on stage, to dismantle something that's almost a myth. The secular population and the modern Orthodox population is not all made up of boys that since the age of 3 have a dream of becoming fighting battalion soldiers. Even some of them dream of becoming engineers, going to university. Some also are afraid to die in battle. Of course, they don't dream about serving 18 months in an intense war and then bury their friends. So I think in the midst of such a bloody war, waving this question of you can't be under sanctions when you're a fighter, I don't know about that. Maybe you should ask the Nahal soldiers who almost went to jail because they said we can take it no longer after 18 months. Can you be or not be a battalion, be forced into battle? So I already told you last time as an advice. These days, some things where we cannot bear to hear, and this is one thing that we cannot bear to hear. There's a limit to the speech, freedom of speech. No, I didn't tell you not to say it. I gave you an advice. If we're speaking about being able to talk to each other, and the conscription law should be done by talking to each other, some things for the population who serve, it's very hard to discuss, and one of these things is this event. And I do want to talk about research, because we are speaking about how can conscription and service in Tzahal look like with Haredi men enlisting while still maintaining the ethos and values and principles of the military. So the military needs to have guideline principles which will not happen without regulation. It's not possible to keep it as maybe and if. Military needs to decide whether a woman can or cannot become, take part, because the army cannot say maybe we'll see, maybe it's okay. It's not going to be okay. The military needs to decide. A Haredi young man, is he taught or not taught about the IDF values and the independence declaration? I mean, Yossi said something that goes without saying, sort of, allegedly. He said that the IDF is like a tube that takes you into the Israeli society, which is amazing to say. But socialization, the Haredi soldiers, is something that is far from being simple. It's something that makes those people in discussion with Tomka, make them stand on their back heels. They say, don't try to re-educate us. We can, standing here, despite the fact we annoy each other, it's something that can't remain as is. And we've seen places where things are not regulated are exactly the places where we see problems arise, and the problems are always the people who will suffer are the weaker parties. And in this story, the weaker party are either women or people with no political strength. I just want to say that, okay, we really have to. And so last things you have to say at Yonatan Yossi, because you asked to be able to react. So just a couple of words each. I want to say something that's not personal, but the difference between me and you is that you deal with research, I deal with tactics. I also deal with tactics. I have 4 children, and tactics is a part of the what you do when you're a parent. I mean with Haredis. Never mind. So this is not the story. The whole question of research. We can give slogans when they are right. I mean, for me, for example, here in the morning, I start frameworks, whether I have money or not. I convince the bank to give me, and they give me all they have. I tell them, give me more. This until the state decides to do it, I do it instead of them, and I can bring nice slogans, but it won't be able to carry water at the end of the day. It wouldn't bring any Haredi to be drafted. So when 28 people showed up to be drafted after draft orders in thousands were sent, and they didn't have people. That's the difference. I don't know if it's annoying or you are not, but I'm speaking from the field, how things should look, how can we bring soldiers, because once again, this is a true necessity to have people fighting. And if it was only a research question, I would still answer about practice. But I see that the moderator wants us to finish. Just one thing. I want to compliment to what he said, especially about that lady who was upset. If we would have come from Haredi society who says, we are sitting in yeshiva and we don't serve in the IDF, okay. But if we serve 15 years and we lose soldiers all the time, also during the past week, it's legitimate to ask that you listen to our opinions. We are the only people in the field, the only ones who draft 1,500 Haredi every year. And we started 20 years ago from zero. We started from 0 people, and now we have 1,500 per year. We will also go to 5,000. But you need to allow this different variety of opinions to our opinions to be heard at the least. But sometimes you do not listen. You attack before listening. You guys, we are dealing with drafting Haredi men with our hands. We know how it works and how it doesn't. We will also allow the next people to come and speak. And thank you all, 3 panelists. Thank you very much. Thank you.